Good morning, my sweet moms and dads. Hope y'all had a good rest last night, because I know how hard that is after losing a child. I don't think I have slept since I've had children. You're up with them when they're babies, when they're sick, and then when they get into teenage age, you're up with them, trying to keep them from, I raise boys, try to keep them from sneaking people in the house, or them getting out of the house, or just worrying. And now I'm not sleeping at all. The one thing that I battle, and I know worrying is not of God, but that's what I need to lay down at the foot of the cross, is battling with worry. I just worry that something's going to happen to my son or whatever, and right now my husband is going through a whole lot. He's very sick, in a lot of pain, and so he's literally up all night, pacing the floors and waking me and my son up to rub his back or to try and help get him to sleep. And I think it's been 3 days now since he has slept, so we are on very limited rest as well. But I tell you what lack of sleep does, okay, other than make you grouchy. It does make you grouchy. You get a lot of prayer in when you get a lot of prayer in when you're not sleeping, especially when you're trying to care for someone else, because if you haven't slept in days and you're in excruciating pain, he can't take pain medicine right now because of other medical issues. So it puts you into a psychotic mode, and it's really awful. It really is awful. You will say things to the ones that you love that are just horrible. And I know that, those words aren't on purpose or aren't meant to hurt anybody, but you go through a psychotic episode, and that is where my husband is right now. So prayers for him if you see this today, tomorrow, any day, because this is not something that's going to go away right away. But talking about worry and fear, because that is a part of this journey that we go through. If you have surviving children, even if you don't have surviving children, but you have other people in your life, I worry. You worry about losing them, or especially if you lost your child. Well, it doesn't matter how you lost your child. There's always some type of worry that comes up. If you lost your child to an illness, you're worried that if you had another child, perhaps the same thing will happen, or one of your other children might get ill. If you lost a child to suicide, we know that that is very dangerous, because that's kind of like a ricochet effect in your family. It does dramatically impact your entire family, and I don't know why, but when one person in the family commits suicide, it puts the other people in the family, especially other siblings, well, parents too, into this mindset that I just want to go and be with them. They did it, so it's okay, and I can do it too. And although I only lost my oldest to suicide, my other two that passed away were reaping the repercussions of my son's suicide. And it's very, very hard. So I get what you're going through, and I'm so sorry if you're not sleeping. Trust me, when I'm praying for me, when I'm praying for how I feel, I know that y'all are feeling the same or worse or, you know, similar. And so I pray for you as well. You know, many times during this journey, I thought I was going insane. I thought that, well, I really thought I was going insane, and that everyone around me was pretty much judging me for that. And I'm sure I was being judged somewhat. I mean, I recall one of my friends telling me after my third son passed away that when people came to my house, they said I had a shrine in my house of my sons. And I guess I did. I mean, the whole house had photos of them, you know, in every room, because that made me feel good to have them in every room. I wanted to see them. And so yes, I guess I did have a shrine. And the bad thing about that is often your spouse may not grieve like you grieve. And so he was much different than me. He didn't want to see pictures. He didn't want a reminder of what he didn't have. And so here I have a house full of pictures, so I don't go insane. And he would just put his blindfolds on as he walked down the hall until he eventually left. I mean, he eventually, you know, had a breakdown and left and self-medicated for, you know, many years. So there's so many different things that happen during this journey, things that I don't want for y'all. I want y'all to be able to lean on God. And I know that is hard because you think, I can't see God. You know, you may think you can't hear him, but you really, if you listen, you can. It's that nagging, you know, voice inside of you that's, you know, and I'm, you know, don't get me wrong, I've had the nagging enemy voice trying to get me to take my life, but I'm talking about the other voice. And if you are not hearing him, pray that you do, because God wants that more than anything for you. So if you pray that you will be sensitive to God's word and that you will hear him when he is giving you a message, then he will. For those of you that are just popping on and just seeing this video and you haven't watched any of the others, my name is Lisa Hagler, and I lost my 23-year-old son to suicide. 4 months later, I was picking my 21-year-old up from a nightclub, and I had flipped the mats over in the car that day because it was raining. It was bad weather conditions, and as I was driving home, my two right tires went off the side of the road a little bit into like some loose gravel, wet gravel, and when it did, I went to put my foot on the brake to take it off of cruise, and when I did, I pushed my mat underneath my accelerator, and it got stuck, and somehow we took off flying. We flipped and hit cattle gates and poles and so many things along the way until we finally landed. When we landed, I noticed that Billy was not in the car with me and that his door had been ripped off. He died within 40 minutes of that wreck. He died before I even made it to the hospital because we went in separate vehicles. And then 2 years later, my sweet Hunter was, I'm sorry y'all, the yawning's real today. And then anyway, 2 years later, my 19-year-old aspirated in the night. He was self-medicating, and the kids that he was with was his brothers that passed away, their friends, and They thought they would chill him out, and they were crushing up pain pills and Xanax and putting it in his drink. Now, I didn't find that out for over a year after his death. He'd called me around 3 o'clock that morning, and we got disconnected. His battery went dead, I guess. I was told it did. And I just wish that I could have talked to him that one last time. But we all have those wishes. And then last year, you know, I was getting on my feet. I was starting to feel better. God was blessing me and showing favor in my life and helping me so much through this journey that I was actually happy and wanting to live life again. And got that call that my stepdaughter, they found her hanging in a shed outside her boyfriend's friend's house. And although they said that her mom and sister said that it pointed to foul play, they didn't have evidence, and they ruled it also as suicide. So, you know, I could have let that slam me back down, and I'll be honest, it did put me in a state for a little bit, and it did kick me in the gut. I loved her very much. She was my very first child. I had her before I had my boys. But, you know, I knew that for my son, my only surviving son, Hayden, for him to be productive and for him to be happy, I could not let it throw me down. He had already been through so much, and he was fighting for dear life to make me and his father happy, and, you know, to make our life full. And so I knew I had to hold it together. And I am. And it wasn't long after, maybe, it wasn't too long after my daughter died that I obeyed God and started a support group on Facebook called Surviving the Loss of a Child. And it was so hard at first because I'm having to open up and tell my story. And although I've become very strong, there's really nothing easy about telling your story. It's a trigger. And I started hearing your stories and how awful that they were, and they were triggers. And so I cried every day. And my son and husband didn't think that I would be able to do this, but I knew that that was what God called me to do. So I kept on and I kept on. And here I am today. And I still cry sometimes. I come on here and I cry. But that doesn't mean that I'm giving up. It doesn't mean that I'm where I was, because I'm not. And so I want y'all to know that time doesn't heal all, but within time, you learn how to deal with the shock of things. You learn. I'm so sorry, y'all. You learn how to cope, and you learn how to have faith in God. And hopefully you learn how to be happy again. You learn how to let yourself be happy again, because that's really what it is. We don't surrender to ourselves because we just feel like if we're happy, what does that look like for us? What does that look like? Does it look like, you know, you're happy and you've lost your child? How can you be happy? I know what it looks like. But at this point in my life, you know, if there is judgment on me because I am happy again, you know, I'm sorry. I don't care, because it's not anyone that knows me. Because the people that know me know how much I've suffered, know how close to death I've been so many times, and they are so happy that God has put me at a point where I'm in survival mode, and I'm enjoying Hayden's life. I'm enjoying my, youngest son's life. And that is what his brothers would want. That is so what his brothers would want. That's what his little stepsister would want. That's what they would want. And so that is what I'm doing. And I encourage you today to try, just for one day. Because in this journey, you do have to live day to day, sometimes hour to hour. But for this next hour, talk to God a little bit. Ask Him to help you with this journey. Ask Him to give you your joy back. I know that's hard for you to ask because you feel guilty asking that, but ask Him to give you your joy back. It doesn't mean that you don't love your child. It doesn't mean that you're finished grieving, because I still grieve the loss of my sons and my stepdaughter, but it means that I'm able to live and move forward and not stay stagnant in the same steps I was in when I lost the boys. So I encourage y'all to reach out to God and pray. And I'm going to be praying too. And where two or more agree together and pray for something, there is power in that, y'all. There is power. And God's going to answer your prayers. You have to have faith that He's going to answer your prayers. And I want you to hang on. And if you have any questions or you need prayer for something else, something specific, then reach out to me, because I will be your prayer warrior and I will pray for you. And I'm not one of these people that will throw up praying hand emojis and saying praying without praying. If I tell you I'm going to pray for you, I'm going to pray for you. And I'm already praying for you, but I will pray specifically for you. I will pray extra hard for you if you reach out and there is a need there. So, y'all, again, I'm driving, and I'm driving to work, and I'm driving in weather. And for many, many, many years, I had PTSD from driving. I still do. I'm driving slow. People behind me are probably like, what is going on with this crazy woman? I am driving slow, but I do have post-traumatic stress syndrome. I have it from so much, but from the wreck with my son, it's very bad. So I don't want to be on here too much longer. Although I'm driving slow, I probably need two hands in case of an emergency. But I love y'all very much, and I'm praying for you. And if you've watched this, please like it if you like it, and subscribe, and leave me a message. I love y'all.